Last week, a client of mine asked me, could you please recommend me some kind of podcast for Japanese business culture? She told me she's going to go to Japan next week. So I kind of did a quick research online and I couldn't really find anything that I would want to recommend. And then I thought, well, maybe it's time for me to start a podcast about this topic. And here I am. My name is Ulrike. I'm a Japan business consultant, trainer, coach for Japanese European business relationships, and this since 2006, and I'm based here in Germany. Our first podcast will be about business trip to Japan. Most people, when they go to Japan the first time, they want to learn all about the rules and the do's and don'ts when you're in Japan. But I think it's more about adjusting your lens. Japanese business culture is not really difficult. It's just completely different. And most friction actually happens because of different expectations. People just don't expect that things are going to work differently. So you need to be open and adjust to that, what you're going to see and experience. So be aware, Japanese business culture and the way how business is done is just different. I think there are some general things that are good if you know them beforehand. The one thing is definitely the language. The other thing is there are a few business values which are completely different. And then the third one is the long-term relationships. I want to say a few words about these three things. The language, of course, we all speak English, but the way how we speak English is differently. And Japan is a very high context culture. That means even in the business world, things are not really said very directly. Things are more vague. You hear a lot of yeses, hi, 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 but they don't always mean yes. And therefore, you also might not hear as a clear no as you want to expect. And you might hear a lot of silence. So don't be surprised, that's just a part of the normal communication in Japan. And of course, that also happens the same way in the business world. The next thing that I want to talk shortly about is Japan has different business values. And one of the most important values in Japan is harmony. Things have to get done in a very harmonious way. That's why you don't have open discussions or frictions carried out openly. Together with that Japan is very group orientated and things are usually decided among a big group and everyone has to find a consensus. That slows things a lot down and you might not have these open discussions in meetings that you want to expect. So these are two things. The third value, which I think is really important for you to know, don't expect if you go to Japan one time that everything is done. Japan is very long-term orientated, so they want to have long-term relationships, and that of course takes time to build up. If you go to Japan for the first time, just make sure that you meet people and you start building up trust, because that's, I think, really quite important, building up trust. The first thing that usually everyone wants to know about is how to deal with the business cards. Yes, it's quite easy actually. Make sure that you have enough cards with you. If you run out of cards, it's really awkward in Japan. And then once you're in the situation that you need to hand over the card, make sure that you prepared and have enough cards with you. If you see there are 10 people in the room, take your business card holder and take 10 cards out. Then once you're approaching the person, make sure you hold the card with two hands and then you hand it over with two hands. And of course, the card also should face the person that the person can read it then immediately, like here in this situation. Yeah. Once you receive the card from the other person, make sure that you shortly look at it, maybe repeat the name if you're not sure how to pronounce it, and then please don't put it in your pocket or anything. Put it back in the card holder or place it on the table in front of you. So it's actually quite easy and it gives a good first impression, and that's very easy. Another thing that gives a good impression is if you're dressed accordingly. Japan is usually quite conservative in the way how they're dressing in their business life. Men have a dark suit and a kind of a bright white shirt. Women should also be kind of dressed in a business outfit. If you do that right, then at least you give a good first impression. The next thing I'd like to mention and talk about is meetings and the way how negotiations are done in Japan. The best thing is if you send your presentation already beforehand to Japan. If it's a Japanese customer, it really helps also if the presentation is translated already into Japanese. During the meeting, there is a lot more silence than what we expect. Typically, presentations are held, and then right after the meeting, you have time for questions. The way how we sometimes do it, like interrupting people during the presentation because you have a question, is usually not done. That's seen as unpolite. And therefore, the whole setting is a little bit more silent than what we expect. The next thing in the meetings, also during negotiations, is that there are no discussions usually. There might be a longer time where Japanese kind of talk among themselves in Japanese to clarify certain points. But usually the presentations are taken back to the team, to the company, talked about later, and then you hear answers or different solutions or suggestions or feedback later on via email or in the next meeting that you have. It does not help at all to push for a faster answer. This only pushes them away. So just give them time and space. And use the time in the meetings and after the meetings to build up trust, because that's really what matters when you have business with Japanese. Since we talked about trust, make sure that if you have time or if you're invited, that you go out in the evening with your Japanese partners and eat and drink something together. Although you might be tired and you might think, oh, there are thousands of emails that I need to answer back in my hotel room, but please push them all aside and go out in the evening and have fun with your Japanese business partners, because that's really the part where the relationship is starting to get built up. That's the part where you start build up trust. That's the part where you get to know each other, and that's extremely important if you work with Japanese. So make sure that you don't plan anything in the evening when you're in Japan. Just focus completely on your Japanese business partner and enjoy the time there. These are some of the basics if you're going on a business trip to Japan. More episodes are gonna come soon. If you have any specific topic, please let me know in the comments. And if you find this helpful, I also have a 30-minute e-learning called Business Trip to Japan, called Mission Japan, on my homepage. At the moment, it's only in German, but English is going to come soon. So please check out my homepage. You find the link below. And again, if you find this helpful, please subscribe. And if you're heading to Japan soon, good luck. I think you're already better prepared than most people.